This is Nick Black in Los Angeles, and I'm in Hollywood at the legendary Musso and Frank's Grill, which is one of Hollywood's oldest restaurants, and today I'm talking to actress Karen Black. And firstly, Karen, I want to thank you for taking time out to talk to us.
My pleasure. It's fine.
First thing I want to ask, Karen, is what got you into acting?
I don't know. I don't think it's something that you can decide. I think you're going to do it. I mean, I think that it's sort of like being gay. You know, at some point you realize you're gay. And I think when you're just sort of born like that, and then at some point you kind of realize that you're an actor, and you just want to do that and do it. I must say that I was 5, and my sister and I used to climb up on this bureau and put our little heads against the ceiling and then fall through the air to the bed. You know, sort of spread eagle and smack ourselves then. It was great fun. I loved it. And on the way down I said, I want to be an actress. So I guess I made the decision early, were it a decision, but I think really it was just sort of there.
Right. And did your sister follow you in acting?
She did, yes, but first she was a ballet dancer, and then she was a dancer in chorus lines and so forth in New York City, and then she got a part on soap opera, which she was on for 13 years as Clarissa. I think it was on Another World, and her name is Gail Brown, strangely enough. And she just picked Brown because she was married to a man named Brown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's black and brown.
Yes.
Were your parents encouraging? Because it's not a steady or stable career, really, is it?
No, it's wildly erratic. The financial stats are amazing. I mean, you can make an amazing amount of money and then make absolutely nothing, and then do a movie for nothing for a friend, and then go back. It's just insane. And it's so that's the bad part of being an actor. And the other bad part about being an actor is you have to kind of think about how you look, which is very, very boring. But the good part is that you get to communicate all these things that you've observed. And I think when you're sort of born an artist, you have a way of viewing the light and color and people and personality and gesture and idiosyncrasies and speech. You have a way of viewing all that around yourself, which is not functional, but is an ecstatic learning experience, which you then put into your writing and into your acting, so that every moment is extremely alive. So in that sense, it's great fun to be an actor.
You were born in Illinois, is that correct?
What did you say?
Illinois?
Yes, Illinois. I thought for a moment that you were saying Illinois. Yes, I was born in Park Ridge, Illinois.
And so then you decided to go off to New York?
Yes, I went to New York first at around the age of 17, and I actually very quickly got a Broadway. Not very quickly. I was there for some years, but only 3.5 or so. And so that is very young to get a Broadway show. And so I started out playing a little teenager, and then I was nominated for Best Actress, even though I was 20 or something. And then I went to LA, except when I was 20 I looked 12, and so I was always playing virgins on television for quite a while. Got very tired of that. And then I did You're a Big Boy Now.
Right. And tell us about that, because that was Francis Coppola's first major studio picture, and it was your first major picture as well?
Oh yes, it absolutely was. And I was actually doing the play, The Playroom, on Broadway, the one for which I got nominated and got very good reviews. I think it was 19 or 20 when I did that, but I was playing a 15-year-old. And Francis came to see the play, and then my boyfriend at the time, Peter Kastner, who played the lead, and I went to see Francis. And he was very interesting, kind of babyish, you know, in a way. He like wiggles his tie and wiggles his mouth and doesn't seem to know what his hands are doing. And I think I told him about it, and he taught me about undifferentiated body movement. And some people, you know, they just keep that, and they don't really differentiate when they grow up. But I thought it was all kind of odd, and then I took the part of Amy, and then he called me and he said, why don't you play the sexy part? And I said, no, I already have Amy already figured out, and I know how she blushes and how she feels. And all. But see, what I didn't know was that I was am a very convincing actress. I actually did not know that. So I went to see the movie, And Amy is a little librarian who says when asked, "Who are you?" "I'm nobody." And I thought that was what I was like on film. I thought I wasn't glamorous, and I wasn't pretty, and I wasn't sexy at all, really, and I couldn't possibly keep making movies because I was just a little nobody. I actually did not know that I had, as an actress, convinced myself of who I was on screen, which I wasn't. I was a character. Do you follow that?
I follow that.
So about 6 months, I thought I shouldn't be an actor on film at all, and I was very depressed. And then somehow, I guess Henry Jaglom, who was bopping around at that time, got me an agent, and then it changed.
Right. And after You're a Big Boy Now, did that lead to, were you recognised as a good actress, and that led on to films, or how did the ball start rolling for you?
Well, Henry flew an agent person he knew named Kevin Castleman in to see the show, and we went to a restaurant, and he had all these contracts, and he put them on the table, and like the goof I was, what was I, 20, I signed them, forgetting, of course, that I had to move to California. So I went to California, and I was kind of sad, because there I was in California with my 5 cats in this little place, and didn't quite know what to do, and was doing television. Anyhow, Henry was hanging out at, I forgot the name of it, and he introduced me to Jack Nicholson, and we got along very well as friends, and Peter Kastner was my boyfriend, and Jack wanted me to audition for 5 Easy Pieces. And I just went in there and was absolutely terrific and very funny, and got the part. And then that was really the beginning of everything.
Right. But was Easy Rider before 5 Easy Pieces?
Yeah, so it was. So Jack told, I guess, Peter about me, Peter and Dennis or something. Anyhow, they all knew each other. And all of a sudden I got a call from Bert Schneider, who produced Easy Rider, and then I went and I had a wonderful time with Dennis Hopper, and we did a scene together which he improvised and I improvised, and basically I thought, what a wonderful actor this man is, how inspired and adorable. And so they gave me the part, and we had this incredibly insane time, which, I'll write a book about soon. And I hid the fact that I had done the movie because I couldn't understand what it was. And it was, and I wrote my own contract because Mr. Castleman was out of town. So I sat down and typed up poorly a little contract for, I think, $300. And then I went off and did this little movie.
Just getting back to 5 Easy Pieces, I think you won quite a few awards and you were nominated for an Oscar as well. How did that, obviously that gave your career a big fillip?
Yeah, it did, but the truth about all of this is that I don't come from a family that's ever made a film. In fact, no one's ever gotten a divorce in our family in all the years in the history of our families. We're kind of, Eastern European and cozy people. And what I should have been doing was getting a production company and having people look for material and having somebody write it into scripts for me and all this sort of thing. But I had no idea what to do, so I would just get scripts and I would do some, and if somebody would talk me into them, or if I knew the people, or it was kind of very catch as catch can. But yes, I got lots and lots of movies to do after that, and have been doing movies ever since at quite a clip. In fact, I do more movies than you may think, because this last year I did about 3 movies, and the year before I did 8, and the year before I did 10. So I do quite a few movies.
Well, I've sort of tried to calculate how many movies you've done, Karen, and I think you're around the 100 mark.
I'm over the 100 mark.
Well, that is a great career by anyone's standards. So, how do you keep working? Is it just because you've established this career already and you've done so much, or how do you keep it going?
I'll answer the question several ways.
Is Edith here?
Is Edith here?
I don't think so.
They don't have Edith, yeah. One of the ways that you keep a career going is if you're really comfortable, not threatened with the work. If someone were to call me up and say, you're doing a movie tomorrow at 5, here's the script, I would deliver. I could deliver because I'm very comfortable with that.
Right.
If somebody called me up and they said, now tomorrow at 6 in the morning, you're singing these 3 songs that you haven't learned yet, I would completely and totally things would come out of my body. I mean, it would just be hideous. I couldn't confront it. But it's very, very easy for me to confront acting. I like it. It's comfortable. It's like, it's sort of like cooking. It's very comfortable. It's not frightening at all.
It's a natural process for you, in other words.
Yes, and I think you'll find that if you can confront something readily, it occurs. It happens to you. You pull it in. If there's something that you really in your heart are avoiding, or you don't really want to do it, or you're afraid of it, or you think I'll do it if this, if that, if this, if this, if this, if only that, and you have all these stipulations, then you sort of like keep yourself away from the experience of it, which is one answer. The other answer is that I know people and I talk to them all the time, and they call me up and I call them, and so I know all these people. But basically my career is shifting now violently. I wrote a screenplay which was accepted at the Sundance, Robert Redford's writing lab. The movie we're seeing tonight, Felons, at Paramount, I co-wrote. I wrote a short that won the best short at the Chicago International Film Festival, best long short. I wrote a movie that starred Sean Young and John Hurd called Men, and the director is now directing a $13 million movie because it was such a good movie. And I've just realized that I can't quite face having someone else direct this movie. I've actually done it today. This is a today thing.
Right.
This is the day. And I'm going to meet the director and I'm going to tell her I'm directing this. This is my first directing chore. It's terribly frightening, but I just have to take responsibility for all of the knowledge I have and all of the perception I have, and I have to just take responsibility for that and make it my own communication, not somebody else's.
Now, have you always written, or is this just something that you've started up recently?
Well, when I was in grammar school, I was reading, Little Women in fourth grade. I was second year high school in English, and when I got into college, I was only there for a little while. I went by the age of 16, and I got it on equivalency because I was tired of high school, and I rated so high on the test that I had to take only one semester of English to be done with all my English requirements for college. Whether that my mother's an award-winning novelist, and my great-grandfather is Arthur Ziegler, first violinist for the Chicago Symphony. So we have a lot of art in our little body, in our little veins, in our little genes, my darling, my genes. So yeah, writing was there, but then I just wanted to perform, and so I moved away from it, and then I just have been going back toward it.
Right. Also, you've written your own songs as well, is that correct?
Yes, but really I'm very involved with script writing right now. I'm not writing songs, but yes, I wrote the songs for Nashville, and we all won we all were nominated for a Grammy for Nashville. Yeah. I used to like writing songs a lot. I still can do it and would love to do it, but it's the one thing I can't do. If I'm going to act and produce and write, and now I'm going to start directing, I'll just have to write and paint when I'm 75.
I just want to mention a film that I particularly like, The Pyx, a very scary movie. The Pyx?
P-I-G-S?
P-Y-X.
Pyx.
Yeah. Now, you wrote, not only you starred in that, but you wrote songs as well for that?
Well, I think it's very sweet of you to acknowledge that film, because I think there must be 12 or 15 people who've seen it. And yes, I wrote the songs for that, and I thought that was a wonderful experience writing the music for that. I love that. Thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah.
Now, I want to. You mentioned Nashville, and you worked with Robert Altman a couple of times. What makes him such a good director? He's good with actors, good with camera. I mean, what for you particularly, personally?
I can answer that. I think what makes him such a good director is that he trusts instinct, and he trusts spontaneity, and he trusts the moment, and he lives for that. It's solid for him. It isn't whimsical. It's the base upon which he functions. For example, at least two of the movies that he's directed came from dreams. When he called, he was lying there wondering who to cast for, actually in Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean. My part, Joanne, who is a transsexual, he was lying there wondering who to cast for that part, and Cher's mother called up trying to reach his wife, and he said, Cher! But Cher said, no, I want to play the other part. And then somehow, he wanted me to play the little, the Texas girl. He wanted me to play another part, but I read it and I said, no, I want to play Joanne, not realizing it was going to take about 5 months of incredible work, tears, and I'll never do it again.
Just following on with great directors, you've worked with possibly the greatest director of all time, the master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock, and that was on his last film, Family Plot. There's a lot of Alfred Hitchcock stories. Do you have a particular Alfred Hitchcock story, or...?
I have one, but I wish I could nail all the people who say things about him. It's such a mark against you if you're so inhumane that you wait till someone dies and then you make up stories about them. I think it's truly despicable. I can think of few things worse, really. He was a very congenial, very warm, very playful man. And we all had a wonderful time. And we would say limericks to each other, and he would say words to me, sort of testing, because I have a very big, pretty good vocabulary. And he would say, testing me, he'd say, your work today was very perspicacious. Mr. Hitchcock, I'd say, well, the word means keenly perceptive, doesn't it? Are you sure that's what you mean? Yes, keenly perceptive, that's what I meant. And then he'd bring in all these limericks, and he loved playing with us, and sometimes he would talk to me, and they were waiting for him, and he'd just keep talking, telling me about his diet or the water he had to take or all this sort of thing. And they would come and say, we're waiting for you, Mr. He said, I thought we were waiting for you. And everyone wore suits, and everyone called him Mr. Hitchcock, and he was shrewd, but very warm and very playful, and I really loved him. And one day, my story is, I thought he was mad at me. So I went to his cabin, which was like an indoor Winnebago in a sense. I said, are you mad at me? And he said, oh, no, I'm just sick, I don't feel well. He said, I've had so many operations, I've had so many now, and I don't have a belly button. And I said, oh, Mr. Hitchcock, you do have a belly. He said, no, I don't have a belly button. I said, I don't believe that you don't have it. He said, I'll show you. And he sort of felt away at his funny it's like all his shirts and his suit and his undershirt, and he lifted them up, and sure enough, when they made the operation, they'd sewed right across his belly, and they had to take his belly button away.
Wow.
That's my Alfred Hitchcock story.
So Alfred Hitchcock didn't have a belly button.
No, it wasn't there, told you.
One of the scariest little pieces of film, it was Trilogy of Terror, which was basically a showcase of your acting skills with three different stories you played, three different female characters, but the one that and the one that probably everyone remembers because it was such a frightening little, how can I describe it? Such a frightening little short story. You being attacked by, I think it was an Indian Zuni doll. Is that?
Very good. Oh, I sort of wrote some of the stuff. I wrote stuff in Airport 75 too. I mean, there were lots of times, and when I worked with Ivan Passer, we would write scenes together. I didn't think much about it, but now that I'm writing entire movies, I guess now I think about it a little.
Speaking of Ivan Passer, he was in the news a few years ago with Heidi Fleiss. Do you still keep in touch with him? Or?
Ivan is a very good friend of mine. I talked to him about 3 or 4 days ago, and he's going to try to help me learn some of the things about directing before I do it on my own. He taught the director of Don Juan DeMarco. In other words, he put him through a kind of a training program. That was his first movie. And he's a very amazingly beautiful soul, and the best raconteur you've ever listened to in your life, which is kind of going out of the world. People aren't raconteurs anymore. And a genius director. I love him. What I had to do when we did that show was fall down. Of course, in the television show or the little movie, whichever you have, I might fall down 5 times. Of course, that means I fell down 60 times because they would take every shot 10 times. And so I got very badly bruised all along the right side of my body and my hip. But I was also proud of myself for taking all my falls myself.
I want to get on to Doris Lessing's The Grass is Singing, which was shot in Africa. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Karen? Where in Africa was it done?
I was very proud to do that part. I felt it was a difficult role for me. She was a sort of anti-sexual human, very closed down inside, and I'm pretty expressive of any emotion that happens to hit me, and she was inexpressive, or shall I say unexpressive? Whichever. She and she couldn't adjust, and actually finally died because she couldn't expand and adjust and include nature. You know, she eschewed nature. She was a kind of a little spinstery office clerk, and then she was taken into the bush where she suffered because her husband wasn't as smart as she and couldn't figure out how to make the farm make any money, but only could lose money. I got a very wonderful review, I think, in the New Yorker, 2 or 3 pages. It's Michael Rayburn, who is a friend of mine, is still now. He came to stay with us a few months ago, and he and his wife. And I talked to him last week when he was in New York. We'd stay in touch. I just love him. But let's see. So they sent me the book, and I read the book very, very thoroughly, and I worked very, very hard on it, and I was didn't know that eventually what would happen would be that I'd fall in love with the country. I really fell badly in love with Africa. I was in Lusaka, which is in Zambia, and then we went into the bush to shoot. My boy was very young then, and Michael and I became lovers, and we were going to get married. We had a period that we were together, and he's a very wonderful man. But when I arrived in Africa, I was really used to green and brown. You know, you expect a planet to be green and brown, and there was none of that. It was August, and it was yellow for 500 miles in every direction, yellow grass, tall grass, and orange earth, and little black trees with the tops chopped off like fingers broken at the knuckle. The first digit, are you okay? And so it was very, very beautiful. It was a terrible time there, and I don't know what it's like now, but I had an armed army officer at my back all the time with a huge rifle. I had to walk around with that. And one day we came home and someone had broken into the house, and the police were chasing them all around the front yard. So it was a hard time. And then I bought. You can buy silver there, but you can't take any money out of Africa, so you have to buy things to take out. So I bought silver, and I had it in a car, and they broke into it and ran away. And so it was sort of like, there was a lot of crime, I guess, I was exposed to, but something about the huge cup of the sky and very, very long kind of pale yellow hours made me really in love with Africa.
I just want to briefly talk about Invaders from Mars, Karen, because you acted with your son Hunter there, and I just wanted to know how it was, acting with such a close family member. Was it different, or was it the same as acting with somebody else? I assume it'd have to be a little different somehow.
Well, I think I was more interested in his acting technique than I am in other actors' acting technique. I just accept whatever they do and don't think much about it. But I was very interested to see because, I love him, and I wanted to see how he did that. And he was very subtle, I thought. He's an extremely good actor, wonderful actor. And he's more internal than I am. He's very subtle and more internal. And you can't quite see what he's doing until you're watching the movie. And then when you see him on screen, you can see what he was doing. And there are other actors every once in a while who are like that, and I'll say to them, I didn't know you were doing that when we did this scene together, but now I see what you were doing. It's kind of a connection with the audience that some people have, and so they can just gauge, exactly the limit and the subtlety that they can use. One thing is that when kids are, I think he was, 10 or something at that point, I'm not quite sure. What they do is, they always go, "Oh my, you're so dumb. Oh my, you're so stupid. Oh my." I mean, kids that are raised properly are willing to insult their parents, I always feel. And when I do a scary scene, when I do a scene where I'm supposed to be scared, I ask everybody, and I tell the sound man to turn his sound down. I ask everybody's indulgence, and then I scream just before they shoot, because then once I'm screaming, I'm scared, you see. And so Hunter thought that was the dumbest thing he ever saw in his life. He said, "Mom, what are you doing? Just be scared later." That sort of thing.
You've done a lot of acting and you've been very busy lately, but now you're embarking on your first directing project. Tell us a little bit about that, and is it daunting just thinking about that, or are you just going to do it as the Nike people say?
Oh, I'm recognizing I have a tremendous amount to learn. I'm going to do a short first. This summer, I'm going to do something that my mother wrote. I think I might have mentioned it to you. Called Her Hand in Clay. Won some awards. My mother's an award-winning novelist, and it'll star my daughter. I mean, it's a very the three girls are doing this. It'll be a short, and I don't want to be a director, by the way. I just want to direct this because I don't know what happened, but nature exploded from inside of me, and it's a very well researched. I lived in Alabama, and I went to Bloody Beat 12 and studied how cotton is, grown, and I went to cotton gins and cotton mills, and I went to shacks where a lot of black people were living, and I went in the shacks and took photographs and talked to the people, and found out from reading newspaper after newspaper about the highways and how much they cost, and that the Conecuh Dam broke, and it's so researched that it seems almost documentary, and yet the story is utterly poetic, and I'm in love with it. And it's as if, and anyone who's ever written a script and made it will tell you that it's not even as if you wrote it after a while. It's just like it's another kind of thing that has its life of its own. But people do love it. They're very attracted to it. I got Daryl Hannah to say she'd play the lead, and I have a very, very successful young director selling it to a couple of wonderful actors, saying how good it is. See, this script was sent to Margaret Deal, and it's how I wrote Men for our company, which Zoe Clark-Williams directed, because it's just very, it's kind of takes you away with it, this script, and I'm very thrilled, and I think that I've changed a great deal since that decision. I feel strengthened, and I feel happier.
Well, good luck with that, Karen, and thank you very much for taking time to talk with us.